communications major, which is a bullshit major, because what's not communications? Like, that kind of covers everything. So this was in like the first Bush's recession, so it wasn't really a surprise to find that there weren't like a whole like stream of job offers waiting for me at graduation, which kind of sucked. I remember being unemployed and watching that old MTV game show Remote Control, and every contestant on it was a communications major. Well, that explains a lot. So I'm wandering around campus, and there's a flyer for a work exchange program where I could go to like somewhere like England or Ireland and work, and then someone from there would work in the US, and that sounded so much better when people asked you, because everyone was asking you after, when you're about to graduate, like, what are you gonna do? Like, I don't know, but I'm going to Europe. It just sounded awesome. So I did that, and I landed in London, and we all went to like the work office in London. We're fighting for jobs, and London was gritty, just didn't really appeal to me. And one day there was a job opening for a job in Brighton. And I had to look on the map, but it was like an hour south of London on the train. So I took the train down to Brighton. I've always been drawn to water. It was on the seaside, it was beautiful, and I actually got a job and a flat in the same day. It's on the English Channel. You can see the Isle of Wight. It's kind of like the Atlantic City of England. There's two piers. There's like a trashy element, but some of them really appealed to me. So I lived in Brighton, and I'm down there for a couple of days. And one of the things I didn't think about, I was going to worry about moving to England, was a hurricane. That doesn't come up much, or hurricane, as they said. But I slept through the whole thing, and I woke up the next day, and there's this 300-year-old tree that had fallen down on my street, and there's a man like Indiana Jones gear, like with a machete, like slashing through the tree. I'm like, well, I guess that's what they do here in England, me as a new person, so I followed him. The wind was so strong that I couldn't even walk to my seaside hotel. I had to go like around the block. And windows were smashed, there was no power, but there was this really ugly American, and as an American I felt responsible, because, you get this, like there is just a different, the English are more, reserved people. I got asked out every single day I lived in England, especially at the hotel. Japanese businessmen for everywhere, and I couldn't figure it out and realized like, compared to the English people, everybody thought I was hitting on them. Or just like asking what kind of day they were having. So I was the only person who could tell this asshole, like, sir, this has been a natural disaster, right? Princess Diana is in Wales, because she's the Princess of Wales, helping, the refugees right now. So if you want me to make you toast over a candle, I can do that, but otherwise, just shut the hell up and stop making our country look bad. So, chambermaiding, as fun as that was, still wasn't meeting a lot of people, but in Brighton, if you've been to Brighton, there's the lanes, and you can wander around. So I wandered around, and I wandered right into the Brighton Hippodrome, which is a historic theater, they'll tell you all the time. Laurence Olivier made his stage debut there, but now it's where the Mecca Brighton Hippodrome bingo happens. Samantha Fox, remember her? She was like a page 3 girl. She was the Mecca Brighton bingo girl. So they basically turned this beautiful historical theater into an English game show. So people always ask, so you worked at a bingo parlor in Brighton, England. Oh, did you call the numbers? Like, oh, I just got a job as a peanut vendor at Wrigley Field. Did you pitch the opening pitch? Like, that's the equivalent of that question. Because you needed a professional alcoholic named Maverick in a tuxedo who would sit at the front of the theater. I can't make this stuff up. And he would sit there and he'd just say stuff like, all the 4s, 44, 3 and 2, 32. Now in the meantime, every octogenarian from Brighton had come in and was sitting there. I had a pocket mic and a really unattractive polyester outfit. And one of the old dears, which is what we call them, would call bingo, and I would have to run up to them and say, hey, claiming full house on the pink page, security number, blah, 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 blah. And then the alcoholic, if he could get it together, would type the number into the computer, and then if that matched up, I would give them their ticket for their winnings, and that was my job. which is pretty hilarious, John. But not just that, I also had to sell the books that they were using for the bingo. And you remember in college those people who would go away for a semester to Oxford or whatever, and then they'd come back and be like, "Oh, can we stop? Just got to use the loo at my flat." Like, you know, you're from frickin' Palatine, so do you want to give me a break? So I was determined not to be one of those people, even though I'm really susceptible to that. And I had to talk all the time while I'm selling the books for the bingo. So I went super twangy. It sounded like Roy Clark from Hee Haw was selling the books from bingo. So I'm sitting there like, £1 for 4, £1.50 for 6. And the old dudes were just like flummoxed by this. Like, where are you from? Are you from Finland? Like, what kind of accent is that? That doesn't sound like anything. And then I didn't know the money and the 10p in England. Like here, you know, the dime is the smallest, but the 10p in England is the biggest. And if your drawer was short, you'd get docked. It'd be so easy to steal. So I actually lost money the first couple weeks I worked there because I just could not get on top of the coinage. But eventually, it all worked out. It was a really, really fun place to work. I met my boyfriend there. I don't want to brag. His mullet was awesome. His name was Andrew Bingham, and he worked the slot machines. It's not a euphemism. So, and I still worked at the hotel, but it was amazing to me. Like, this is my native tongue, and all the language problems that would still happen. Because sometimes I would work breakfast at the hotel. This is a horrible story, but over there, napkin means sanitary napkin, and the napkin part is serviette. So if you ask somebody at breakfast if they needed another napkin, it's really bad. It's not good. You know, everybody knows like fag means cigarette, but I would just have so much trouble. And one time the owner of the hotel was like kind of yelling at me, like, "Can you hoover the reception?" And this went on for like 10 minutes. I'm like, "What?" And then finally I'm like, "Oh, I mean vacuum the lobby." And they all like died. Like, that's the funny, like they all fell apart. Like, "Do you hear what she said? Vacuum the lobby." Like this accent that they just loved was hilarious. This happened to me the whole time I was there. But sometimes the language is trying to help you, right? Like, if you go to London, you come out of Victoria Station or Euston Station, you see the sign on the bottom that says "Look left." And you're like, "Haha, that's so funny. What's that for?" Well, it's because a car's going to hit off your head. But on the back roads of Sussex, where I was, there were no such signs on every road. So sure enough, I was walking to Andrew Bingham's house, and I totally got hit by a car. That was probably going about like 15 miles or kilometers or whatever an hour, and hit me in my butt. And it was probably the most exciting thing that happened in Sussex County, like that whole month. But so the police came and asked me what happened, and the second I opened my mouth, and they're like, "Oh, American," and they just wrote down American in the car accident. But I'm so glad I did that, and I wanted to talk about this before Paris last week, but now when I think about Paris and I think about what I did as a 20-year-old, you know, I hope my kids do the same thing, because, you know, you graduate from college, the world is huge, and you go, the world's freaking tiny, you know, and we're all a part of it. And coming from like the US, I felt like I was 20, so it was all about me, like, who am I? Who will I be in a bingo parlor? You know, like who the frick cares, you know? I went over there and I remember one of the chambermaids was like, "Well, you don't have Christmas in America, right? You guys have Thanksgiving." I'm like, "Are you serious? Like, you don't know that about the US? Who the frick cares about the US? Like, we're all part of like the big picture." So I'm so glad I was over there, and I was so glad to be a part of that. And I hope my kids are braver than me. You know, I hope they go to a country that they don't speak the language, or they learn the language. I hope they go to Greece or France. Because it just becomes a part of you and it stays with you. You know, I still use British slang that at the time they're words that I probably shouldn't have been saying. I didn't realize how bad they kind of were, but I still do. I still drink a lot of tea. I'm still a complete Anglophile, even though I got really mad at Downton Abbey for killing off Matthew. That was bullshit. But most of all, I have to say that the biggest thing I got out of England is that I always look 500 different ways before I cross the street. Thank you.